All right. So we're connecting in.
I've got tons of parcels today.
Is that good? I hope that's good.
I love parcels.
Oh, okay. There we are. I think we're now live. Let's get the music up. And you about ready to begin?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Louis D'Souza. Today is Monday, June the 24th, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and 10 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm both happy and sad, Louis. I'm happy because we're talking about illusions. I'm sad because we're almost done with illusions.
Walt, are we ever done with the illusion?
Well, I guess I'm dealing with the illusion of being done with illusions. How about that? But it's been such a good book, and it brought back memories of what it was like reading it the first time, and just getting the clarity and the insight that it gives. I mean, it's just really, it's remarkable, especially for when it was written. I mean, it was well ahead of its time, you know?
Way ahead.
Yeah. It was good stuff. But we've been flying through it, which is not difficult to do. It's only about 200 pages, but we've been flying through it, and we're now up to the part where goodbyes start to happen. And those goodbyes are a little bit of a challenge because, Richard's been really getting used to learning all this stuff from his new guru and so forth, and learning how to swim in the earth and make clouds disappear and produce blue feathers out of thin air.
Swim in the earth. Yeah, I love it.
But all stories draw to a close, and that's where we are right now. Before we get into the story, though, I do want to make sure that I get some announcements out of the way. First and foremost, are you a subscriber to the podcast? If you're not, you are? Hooray! We had one more subscriber today, folks. This is great. No, I'm kidding. But no, seriously, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become one. Very easy to do. Just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net, and right there at the top, you will get instructions for how to subscribe to the device you're using at the time that you visit the website. And then, of course, once you have subscribed, make sure that you share with others the fact that you are subscribing. Subscribe and share. And by the way, if you want to watch us as we're recording these, we record live streamed to YouTube, and you can also listen to the podcast via YouTube as well. So just go to YouTube, do a little search for LOA Today podcast videos. We'll pop right up, and then click the little subscribe button next to us, and then also click the little bell next to the subscribe button so you get notified every time that we're live and every time that we've posted a new video. So there's our announcements for the day, and that gets our week off to a good start because we're now fully announced.
No excuses.
No excuses. That's right. It's all done. So chapter 18. Now, chapter 17 was where you could kind of see the storm clouds coming because Donald Shimoda appears on the radio program, the Jeff Sykes radio program, and he doesn't say the usual things that Richard is used to him saying. He starts saying things that he knows to be true from the level of his higher self, but it doesn't sound like he's really trying to connect to the level of where the listeners are on the radio show. And the listeners are making it pretty clear that they are not resonating with what he's saying. When you read that chapter, by the way, Louis, what was your reaction? I mean, did you feel like there's something different going on here and you weren't really comfortable with it? Or did you feel excited? Or what were you feeling when you read that?
Well, I was waiting for somebody to shoot him.
Yeah, it was looking kind of dismal, that's for sure. So anyway, okay, well, we're on chapter 18. There's only this chapter and chapter 19, and they're both pretty short, followed by a little epilogue. And I think we're probably going to get through them today, but let's see how far we get. Chapter 18, as so many of the other episodes, other chapters, I should say, starts with a segment from the Messiah's Handbook, which Donald gave to Richard early on in the story. And it says, don't be dismayed at goodbyes. A farewell is necessary before you can meet again. And meeting again after moments or lifetimes is certain for those who are friends. That's kind of a comforting statement, too. Next noon, before the people came to fly, he stopped by my wing. Remember what you said when you found my problem, that nobody would listen no matter how many miracles I did? No. Do you remember that time, Richard? Well, yeah, I remember the time. You looked so lonely all of a sudden. I don't remember what I said. You said that depending on people to care about what I say is depending on someone else for my happiness. That's what I came here to learn. It doesn't matter whether I communicate or not. I chose this whole lifetime to share with anybody the way the world is put together, and I might as well have chosen it to say nothing at all. The is doesn't need me to tell anybody how it works. Well, that's obvious, Don. I could have told you that. Thanks a lot. I find the one idea I lived this life to find. I finish a whole life's work, and he says, that's obvious, Don. He was laughing, but he was sad too, and at the time I couldn't tell why. Now, that's a short chapter. That's an entire chapter right there. And in that chapter, he hits on the key point. It doesn't matter whether I communicate or not. So I got a question for you. Early on, he talks about how we are here to do two things, to learn and to have fun. Okay? He came here to learn one thing. Do you think we come here to learn one thing?
Definitely not.
I mean, it seems like a kind of a waste of a lifetime to learn just one thing.
So if you're looking at the Abraham Hicks philosophy and point of view, you're looking at, we come here to play with the contrast to expand the all. Okay, so that one thing could have helped expand the all for him and his reality and his world. And I would say that only one reason or one thing you came to this life to learn is not really the way I believe it to work. But you could perceive it as that for that moment in time. You could say that was the one lesson I wanted to learn. But that's something I've kind of learned along the way from life is, which one of my two daughters is my favorite? So when my little one comes to me, I say, oh, Eloise, you're my favorite daughter. And when the bigger one comes to me, I say, you're my favorite daughter. So it's kind of like, this is my lesson now, but, there could be another one tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because there is a never-ending aspect to our infinite selves.
Yeah, and it did occur to me that what he was really doing here was using a kind of a literary device to bring the book to a conclusion. He introduced this character who kind of appeared out of thin air as a mechanic in the middle of Indiana, had all these crowds, walked away from the crowds, taught Richard something, and then left. That's a fairly short span of time. So, I mean, it fits from that perspective. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, coming here to just learn one thing. Well, actually, there's a piece of me that says, well, are we here necessarily to learn anything? Is that really our purpose? Are we here to learn? Is that why we're here? And Richard says, yes. I think we're here primarily just to have fun, just to enjoy ourselves. And the success we have with that is success. Do we learn stuff along the way? Probably, almost certainly. You really can't do anything without learning. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You're talking about, the ultimate reason that anybody really wants in their lives is to be happy, and if the consequence of that is to learn something along the way, then yes. And you learn happiness through unhappiness, because you will not know happiness unless you have the contrast. So it's quite fun, really. It's the interesting thing about this little chapter that really grabbed me was, along the way, when I was younger, I really wanted to teach more about life. Actually, I wanted to learn more about life in the beginning, but then I got to a stage I wanted to teach it. I thought it was important that people should learn it. And it's now great that I'm at the stage where I don't care if people learn it or not. I actually enjoy sharing new concepts and ideas to people. And if they like them, they like them. If they don't, they don't. And it doesn't really matter. But I enjoy teaching it.
Yeah.
Sharing it. So it's a lovely place to be when you get to that stage of not expecting other people to like or dislike what you're promoting.
Right.
It's a very freeing and liberating place to be. And I talk about it often because it really is a place. It's a good philosophy for people to understand about how they share their passions.
Mm-hmm.
Share them because you enjoy them, not because you want other people to follow your painting or your singing or your whatever.
Exactly. That's it in a nutshell.
You do it just for the passion of it, for the enjoyment of it, for the fun of it. And where I get the most passion is talking about philosophy, concepts, and ideas. And that is where I need to roll. That's where I need to fly. That's where I need to go. And that's what I do all the time. And I really, really enjoy that. But I enjoy it so much more now because I'm not expecting somebody to want to take it on board and to run with it and agree with it and not agree with it. And, whatever they do, I just have fun.
And that's ideal. I agree with that. I think that's fabulous. In fact, it also kind of harkens back toward the beginning of the book, near the beginning of the book, where the Messiah Handbook refers to the idea that we're here to not only to do things that are fun and do things that we learn from, but also talks about how we teach best what we most need to learn.
Yeah.
The best teachers are the best students. And
well, if you think about it, when I was younger, I really wanted to learn and understand why I'm here. It was the most pressing question I could ever have had.
Right.
And now I'm really enjoying teaching what I found to be the answer to that. So you teach best what you most need to learn. It's kind of, it kind of can work out. And even in teaching and enjoying it myself so much, I'm realizing that this is really the way to be. And I'm learning more about how to just be happy where I'm at and just enjoying the way I'm doing it and all the rest.
Exactly. And as it turns out that the best teachers are the ones who aren't trying to teach.
Teach, absolutely.
Right.
And the other thing I was thinking about, well, the other day, if I wanted somebody to really agree with me in my sauna, because I like using my sauna.
You do a lot of teaching in that sauna, I tell you.
I got more stories, but no. If I need you to agree with me, Walt, then I'm not sure of my own philosophy, am I?
That's true.
I don't really understand what I'm teaching because I need your reassurance of what I'm saying is correct or accurate or right, or and
it's almost like needing approval, really.
Yeah. And if I need approval, then I don't really know what I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess that's the mark of the true master. The true master, he kind of says it here toward the end. The true master doesn't really care whether or not you.
That's exactly what he's saying there. Yes, He doesn't. And that was his big lesson. His big lesson was, I don't need anybody to believe me or agree with me because, if then my happiness is reliant on something outside me. And when you're not agreeing with me, I'm unhappy.
I've been noticing that a lot on Facebook. Well, actually, two things have been happening on Facebook. First of all, I'm spending a lot less time on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm kind of disproving the theorem that says that Facebook and other social media are addicting us, because the more time I spend on it, the less time I want to spend on it. It's gotten to the point now where I'll flick to my Facebook page like 3 or 4 times in a day for about 10 seconds. And if I don't see something there really fast, I'm done.
Exactly, because if you're in alignment, then the posts that are in resonance with you are going to pop up at that time.
That's right.
And those are the ones you're going to want to reply to or not reply to, as the case may be. And it's going to flow. It's going to be right, because that's the way I work. Because I can see your comments occasionally on my posts, and I comment on yours. And, this is a good answer and all the rest of it. And, it's interesting how I think we've popped up on the same one, even though you're not doing it often and I hardly ever do it. I still see your posts, so we must be.
Well, we're connected. That's the algorithm.
We're connected, yeah.
Yeah, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I just noticed, like today, there were a number of posts, and I think there's actually quite a few of these over time. There were a number of posts where the person who was posting was focusing externally, looking for internal success or validation or a change or improvement or something like that. And I think I was just becoming really, really cognizant of how often we human beings do that. We're looking externally for what we need to find internally.
Walt, if you don't like me, then I'm not going to be happy anymore.
And if you don't address this issue that I'm dealing with this other person, or if you don't solve my work issue, or if you don't solve this, or you don't fix that, or whatever, then you're not listening to me. You're not listening. fact, I saw somebody who posted something about how to go. I can't remember exactly, but the gist of it was about do you want to focus on problems or do you want to focus on solutions? And my reaction was, I don't really want to focus on either one. I spent far too many years of my life trying to solve all the problems. And many times I was focusing on the problems more, and other times I was focusing on the solutions more. But ultimately, I just became a slave to solving problems to the point where, like, I'm done with that. I am so done with solving problems. So now I've finally come to the conclusion that it's not my job to fix all the problems, even my own. It's not my job to fix all the problems.
You need to just focus on what you want and let the universal law of attraction bring in the solutions.
That's it.
So the universal law of attraction is solving it for you, and you're just keeping focus on what you want.
Exactly. Which is so much easier and so much more fun.
So much easier. It takes so much weight off so many people's shoulders if they really grasp that. So
absolutely true. All right. Well, we're up to chapter 19.
Oh, no.
This is the last chapter before the epilogue. Okay. As usual, it begins with another quote from the Messiah's Handbook. And it says, the mark of your ignorance is the depth of your belief in injustice and tragedy. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. And I remember reading that the first time and saying to myself, what does the first thought have to do with the second thought? At the time, I couldn't see any connection at all. Now it seems like they go together. But first time I read that, like, what drugs is he doing? Are he doing right now? I mean, just, whoa, you got to be kidding me. Okay. The words in the handbook the day before were the only warning I had. 1 second, there was a normal little crowd waiting to fly, his airplane taxiing and stopping by them in a whirl of propeller wind, a casual good scene for me from the top wing of the fleet as I poured gas into the tank. The next second, there was a sound like a tire exploding, and the crowd itself exploded and ran. The tire on the Travel Air was untouched. The engine ticked over at idle, as it had a moment before. But there was a foot-wide hole in the fabric under the pilot's cockpit, and Shimoda was pressed to the other side, head slammed down, his body still as sudden death. It took a few thousandths of a second for me to realize that Donald Shimoda had been shot. Another to drop the gas can and jump off the top wing, running. It was like some movie script, some amateur-acted play. A man with a shotgun running away with everybody else. Close enough by me, I could have cut him with a saber. I remember now that I didn't care about him. I was not enraged or shocked or horrified. The only thing that mattered was to get to the cockpit of the Travel Air as fast as I could and to talk with my friend. It looked as if he had been hit by a bomb. The left half of his body was all torn leather and cloth and meat and blood, a soggy mass of scarlet. His head was tilted down by the fuel primer knob, excuse me, at the lower right corner of the instrument panel, and I thought that if he had been wearing his shoulder harness, he wouldn't have been thrown forward like that. Oh, jeez. Don, are you okay? Yeah, fool's words. He opened his eyes and smiled. His own blood was sprayed wet across his face. Richard, what does it look like? I was enormously relieved to hear him talk. If he could talk, if he could think, he would be all right. Well, if I didn't know better, buddy, I'd say you have a bit of a problem. He didn't move, except just his head a little bit, and suddenly I was scared again, more by his stillness than by the mess in the blood. I didn't think you had enemies. I don't. That was a friend. Better not to have some hater bringing all sorts of trouble into his life, murdering me. The seat and side panels of the cockpit were running with blood. It would be a big job just to get the Travel Air clean again, although the airplane itself wasn't damaged badly. Did this have to happen, Don? No, he said faintly, barely breathing, but I think I like the drama. Well, let's get cracking. Heal yourself. With the crowd that's coming, we got lots of flying to do. But as I was joking at him, and in spite of all his knowing and all his understanding of reality, my friend Donald Shimoda fell the last inch to the primer knob and died. There was a roaring in my ears. The world tilted, and I slid down the side of the torn fuselage into the wet red grass. It felt as if the weight of the handbook in my pocket toppled me to my side, and as I hit the ground, it fell loose, wind slowly ruffling the pages. I picked it up, listlessly. Is this how it ends? I thought. Is everything a master says just pretty words that can't save him from the first attack of some mad dog in a farmer's field? I had to read it 3 times before I could believe these were the words on the page. Everything in this book may be wrong. I'm going to let you comment on that. I have a thing I have to deal with here.
Okay. So everything that is in this book may be wrong. So I love that saying. It's one of my favorites because I'm busy writing a book and I want to put that into my book as well. It's just such a great thing because nobody really has all the answers, do we, ever? So you're giving people space to find their own way in their own time and their own whatever method they want to, which is really fun, and it gives people the freedom of you're not having to worry about if you're right or wrong and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just so succinctly put. I really like the book and the way he's written it.
I remember the first time I read that, I had to read it twice. Everything in this book may be wrong. Like, oh, so basically you were setting me up all this time? This is all a big joke? Is that why? This is a practical joke. That's what this book is. It's a practical joke. Yeah.
It's interesting how for the time, how he ended the book. I was wondering if he'd written it in this day and age, he probably would have ended it differently.
How so?
Just give me a second. I need to sneeze.
Oh, dear. Okay.
So at the time, a lot of people like you, when you're reading this book, you thought it was way beyond its time and it was a bit scary, and everybody's narcissistic, and you create your own reality completely and totally, and it is a really hard message to give out at that day and age. So have the individual killed would put a different slant on it, would take away some of the sting of the truth, maybe.
The sting of the truth, okay.
But today, I think he might have ended it differently. I don't know. It's just a thought of mine, because I think a lot of people are thinking this way now. A lot of people are understanding it better. So I don't know. I think maybe he just would have written the end of it, but differently. I don't know. It's just an idea of mine.
Interesting thought. I'm not sure if he would have written it differently or not, written the ending differently or not. I kind of suspect he likes that ending. And I think that's partly because in literature has endings. That's what literature does. Literature tells a story, and stories have endings. Now, do stories actually end? Well, no. The end of one story is the beginning of the next story, so they're kind of continuous.
Yeah.
But when we tell stories, we tell a story from a beginning to an end, and partly because we need to go get something to eat or go to the bathroom. You just can't endlessly listen to the story, so you have to kind of take a break. And also, the author at some point wants to get paid for his book, so he has to draw it to a close.
Yeah. I was remembering somebody was making it very clear to me something I was completely unaware of at the time. You remember the movie Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it started, if I remember correctly, with I can't remember now, but there was 2 symbols that I remember. I think one was a feather or something floating down, and the other one was a box of chocolates. And I don't know if it was both of them or what, but they often start a movie with a symbol and they end a movie with a symbol to wrap it up.
Right.
But I was kind of thinking with this book if he had done that or not. That's all.
Well, I think actually he does, because he starts the book with how Donald Shimoda had become this messiah figure who put down his tools and walked away from the job. And he ends the book with him being blown away from the job. But basically, in both cases, he's leaving the job.
Leaving the job, yeah.
And as he says himself, I think I kind of like the drama of it.
But that's a lot of people, isn't it? Well,
absolutely.
That's a lot of people, yeah. I've heard it in Abraham Hicks, people in the hot seats, Abraham was saying to them, but you like the drama, don't you? And almost every single person they've said that to said, yeah, I suppose I do. And, you watch people and sometimes they really they're really enjoying the drama. I look at soaps and I really feel the drama in those,
It was one of the motivating factors for Alex and I to do The Grass is Greener.
Yeah.
And that dramatic piece is something I always kind of moved away from. I never really liked drama a whole lot. But then I discovered over time I liked it better than I thought I did. Mm-hmm. Which was a bit alarming, to say the least, because I thought I was somebody who was really turned off by drama. But it actually turns out I'm just as interested in drama as the next person, even though I don't want to engage in it all that much myself. But it's kind of like the reason people go to auto races. They go to auto races for the drama. They don't go, to see who won.
The wrestling match. Yeah.
They're more interested in whether there was an accident than in who crossed the line first. But they want to have the drama of the cars racing by, engines roaring, and competing for position and all that kind of stuff. They love that. Mm-hmm. And the same thing is true for somebody who goes to see a play or goes to watch a movie or anything else that has a dramatic impact.
I see it in myself. Sometimes I get cross about a situation, and it's more for the drama effect than I'm really cross about anything. It's just let's have some contrast here.
And drama is how we interact externally. I mean, we often talk about here on this show about how important it is to focus internally because that's where all the real magic happens. And indeed, it's one of the reasons I love doing the show, because it's a reminder for myself and for our listeners. We focus internally in order to get what we want in life, but we also like to tell the external stories. The stories are fun. The stories are what draw us in. We just told a story. We just read a story. This is the last episode reading this story. We love the stories. The stories are where the drama happens.
But I find it very difficult to separate the inner and the outer, because the outer is just a manifestation of the inner. So they're not really separable in my mind. It's in a way kind of there's a circle goes round and round.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they really are, like you said. I shouldn't say obviously, because it took me a long time to come to that state. But evidently, how about that? Evidently, yes, the external is really just an extension of the internal. But we also, it's just easier for us, I think, as human beings to communicate thinking in terms of internal and external. If we start blurring the boundaries, it's like, okay, well, I'm talking about the same thing no matter what. And like, what do the words mean? I don't understand what the words mean.
I was overhearing a conversation with one of the parents at a play group, and they were saying that all children are vulnerable, and I balked at that. I was like, "What? What are you saying? All children are vulnerable? Are you saying my children are vulnerable?" And I said, "There's a better way of saying it." I said, "All people are vulnerable some of the time."
Yeah.
I said, let's see if we can agree on that.
Also, the tricky part of what exactly do we mean by vulnerable?
Yeah, exactly. When you start breaking that down, I start talking vibrational match.
Yeah. Other people talk about being connected to emotions. Still, the people think about being victims of potential attack. And now all of a sudden you got 3 different topics going on there. Yeah.
A bit of a minefield, all that, unless you got time to sit and sort it all out.
Absolutely. This is why Facebook is becoming less and less interesting to me.
Yes.
Well,
what surprised me in that Facebook group as well is, they've asked that same question, which the other 1,000 people have asked yesterday and the day before. Wow. It's interesting. We do tend to want to learn through our personal experience, not other people's, do we?
That's true. Yeah. Well, that's why stories are so useful, because they do have the dramatic aspect to it, but they are also shared experiences. I tell a story about how I missed a bus, and anybody who's ever missed a bus completely understands the story.
Yeah.
It's a way of identifying with each other. Like, yeah, I've been there too. I know what you're talking about.
Got the T-shirt.
But we aren't done with this particular story, so we don't totally know what we're talking about yet. So we have to finish the epilogue in order to find that out.
Yeah, let's hear the epilogue.
So here's the epilogue. By autumn, I had flown south with the warm air. Good fields were few, but the crowds got bigger all the time. Interesting, considering early on in the book, he was afraid of the crowds. He didn't want to have anything to do with crowds. Mm-hmm. People had always liked to fly in the biplane, and these days more of them were staying to talk and to toast marshmallows over my campfire. Once in a while, somebody who hadn't really been much sick said they felt better for the talking, and the people next day would look at me strangely, moving closer and curious. And more than once, I flew away early. No miracles happened. Interesting perspective. Although the fleet was running better than ever she had and on less gas. She had stopped throwing oil, stopped killing bugs on her propeller and windscreen. The colder air, no doubt, with the little fellas getting smart enough to dodge. How often we talk ourselves out of the things that we've been doing.
Yeah, it's like no miracles there.
Still, one river of time had stopped for me that summer afternoon when Shimoda had been shot. It was an ending I could neither believe nor understand. It was stalled there, and I lived it 1,000 times again, hoping it might somehow change. But it never did. What was I supposed to learn that day? One night, late in October, after I got scared and left the crowd in Mississippi, he still gets scared at times, I came down in a little empty place just big enough to land the fleet. Once again, before I slept, I thought back to that last moment. Why did he die? There was no reason for it, if what he said was true. There was no one now to talk with as we had talked, no one to learn from, no one to stalk and attack with my words, to sharpen my new bright mind against. Myself? Well, yes, but I wasn't half the fun that Shimoda had been, who taught by keeping me always off balance with his spiritual karate. Thinking this, I slept, and sleeping, dreamed. He was kneeling on the grass of a meadow, his back to me, patching the hole in the side of the travel air, where the shotgun blast had been. There was a roll of grade A aircraft fabric and a can of Beauty Rate dope by his knee. I knew that I was dreaming, and I knew also that this was real. Don! He stood slowly and turned to face me, smiling at my sorrow and my joy. Hi, fella, he said. I couldn't see for words. There's no dying. There is no dying at all, and this man was my friend. Donald, you're alive. What are you trying to do? I ran and threw my arms around him, and he was real. I could feel the leather of his flying jacket, crush his arms inside it. Hi, he said. Do you mind? What I am trying to do is to patch this hole here. I was so glad to see him, nothing was impossible. With the dope and fabric, I said. With dope and fabric, you're trying to fix. Look, you don't do it that way. You see it perfect, already done. And as I said the words, I passed my hand like the screen in front of the ragged, bloody hole. And when my hand moved by, the hole was gone. There was just pure mirror-painted airplane left, seamless fabric from nose to tail. So that's how you do it, he said, his dark eyes proud of the slow learner who made good at last as a mental mechanic. I didn't find it strange. In the dream, that was the way to do the job. There was a morning fire by the wing, and a frying pan balanced over it. You're cooking something, Don. You know, I've never seen you cook anything. What you got? Pan bread, he said matter-of-factly. The one last thing I want to do in your life is show you how this is done. He cut 2 pieces with his pocket knife and handed me one. The flavor is still with me as I write. The flavor of sawdust and old library paste warmed in lard. What do you think? He said. Don? The Phantom's Revenge, he grinned at me. I made it with plaster. He put his part back in the pan. To remind you, if you ever want to move somebody to learn, do it with your knowing and not with your pan bread, okay? No! Love me, love my pan bread. It's the staff of life, Don. Well, very well, but I guarantee your first supper with anybody is going to be your last if you feed them that stuff.
Last supper.
Absolutely. We laughed and we were quiet. I looked at him in the silence. Don, you're all right, aren't you? What, you expect me to be dead? Come on, Richard. And this is not a dream? I won't forget seeing you now? No, this is a dream. It's a different space-time, and any different space-time is a dream for a good, sane earthling, which you are going to be for a while yet. But you will remember, and that will change your thinking and your life. Will I see you again? Are you coming back? I don't think so. I want to get beyond times and spaces. I already am, as a matter of fact. But there is this link between us, between you and me and the others of our family. You get stopped by some problem, hold it in your head and go to sleep, and we'll meet there by the airplane and talk about it if you want. Don, what? Why the shotgun? Why did that happen? I don't see any power and glory in getting your heart blown out by a shotgun. He sat down in the grass by the wing. Since I was not a front-page messiah, Richard, I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. And since you need the practice in being unflustered by appearances and unsaddened by them, he added heavily, you could use some gory appearances for your training. And fun for me, too. Dying is like diving into a deep lake on a hot day. There's the shock of that sharp, cold change, the pain of it for a second, and then accepting as a swim in reality. But after so many times, even the shock wears off. After a long moment, he stood. Only a few people are interested in what you have to say, but that's all right. You don't tell the quality of a master by the size of his crowds, remember. Well, Don, I'll try it, I promise. But I'll run away forever as soon as I stop having fun with the job. Nobody touched the travel air, but his propeller turned. Its engine powdered cold blue smoke, and the rich sound of it filled the meadow. Promise accepted, but, and he looked at me and smiled as if he didn't understand me. Accepted, but what? Speak, words, tell me, what's wrong? You don't like crowds, he said. Well, not pulling at me, no. I like talk and ideas back and forth, but the worship thing you went through and the dependence? I trust you're not asking me. I mean, I've already run away. Well, maybe I'm just dumb, Richard, and maybe I don't see something obvious that you see very well. And if I don't see it, will you please tell me, but what is wrong with writing it down on paper? Is there a rule that a Messiah can't write down what he thinks is true? The things that have been fun for him, that work for him? And then maybe if people don't like what he says, instead of shooting him, they can burn his words, hit the ashes with a stick. And if they do like it, they can read the words another time or write them on a refrigerator door or play with whatever ideas make sense to them. Is there something wrong with writing? But maybe I'm just dumb. What, in a book? Well, why not? Do you know how much work? I promise never to write another word again in my life. Oh, sorry, he said. There you have it. I didn't know that. He stepped on the lower wing of the airplane and then into the cockpit. Well, see you around. Hang in there and all that. Don't let the crowds get to you. You don't want to write it. You sure? Never, I said. Never another word. He shrugged and pulled on his flying gloves, pressed the throttle forward, and the sound of the engine burst and swirled around me until I woke under the wing of the fleet, with the echoes of the dream still in my ears. I was alone, the field as silent as green autumn snow, soft over the dawn and the world. And then, for the fun of it, before I was fully awake, I reached for my journal and began to write, one Messiah in a world of others, about my friend. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana.
Awesome book. Awesome.
Awesome book, no doubt about it. And it has that nice circularity we're talking about. It goes right back to the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, the fact is, we don't have to live the Donald Shimoda life. I personally have no interest in going that particular route. It's just not interesting to me. But we can do the Richard route. We can write a book. I like to do it by doing a podcast.
Or a play.
Or a play, yeah, an audio play. That's also fun. And in the process of following my particular passion, I find myself finding ways to enjoy drama without getting all wrapped up in it and getting pinned down by it. What's that?
Without getting shot.
Without getting shot, right. Yes. Yes, not getting shot, that's certainly a priority, I would say. So, well, what do you think? What do you think of the book?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's so true and so correct on so many different levels that to integrate a lot of those philosophies into your life is still challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Challenging. I've probably succeeded in understanding and living the I create my own reality, but more than most. But I still know that there's lengths and lengths and lengths that I can go to fully understand it and fully grasp it and fully live it. So, yeah, I'm just enjoying that journey, because in teaching it a little bit more and coming up with all the different arguments and discussions that I have with other people, I get to look at it from different angles, and slowly but surely everything's getting polished. It's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. So, yeah, the book was a great stepping stone many years ago. And now with the Abraham Hicks teachings, it just so resonates on so many levels which it didn't before. So very, very, very grateful for the Abraham Hicks as well.
That's good. For me, one of the big things about the book is that it's a story. I love stories. I think most people love stories, but I especially love stories. And I loved that one because it was a good novel. It was a well thought out story where you had a variety of themes weaved into it, and those themes actually taught me a bunch of stuff. But it was the story part that was actually the fun part. And interestingly enough, most of that story was about doing things that at the time I would have considered impossible. I think that's part of the reason it was so intriguing, so enticing. Reading about stuff that's not possible. Now, I have kind of moved into the idea that it's improbable. So I moved a few degrees, not a whole lot, but I've moved a little bit.
My dad would always say to me when I see him staring into the distance, so what are you doing, Dad? He'll say, I'm contemplating upon the probabilities or the possibilities or the improbabilities. Like, okay.
That's actually not a bad way of expressing it. That's pretty good. Yeah. The probabilities of the possibilities of the
improbabilities, yeah. But our lives are stories, and I've got a lot of stories from my own life, which you've heard of many of them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bring you up to what I call my first enlightenment at the age of about 10. After a long hiking trip, we were making base camp, and we were sitting around a fire, and this lady from Johannesburg and me decided to chat, and we were getting along very, very well. And she was talking about actually almost everything I did. She was talking about health and nutrition, which I've just, which I'm in the business of. She was talking about colorings and flavorings, mineral vitamins. She was talking about relationships. We were having such a deep and meaningful conversation. And I said to her, I was on tender hooks and my solar plexus was all wound up, and I was looking at her and I said, why don't people speak like this all the time? And she looked at me and she said, because they're scared. And there was like a light bulb moment. Oh, I didn't know that. So that was my first kind of epiphany, and I never forgot it. I'll never forget it.
It's an interesting concept because they're scared, and it's very wide open the way she phrased that.
Yeah.
I mean, the first question that goes into my mind is, well, so what are they afraid of? And the answer is almost limitless.
I know. Don't want to truly know myself. Don't want to believe in a higher being or power, or I don't know. There's so many. You're right. It's very open. It was a great way to answer the question for me at that age.
Yeah, that was quite a conversation. It sounded like she was almost like your Donald Shimoda moment.
Yeah, it was, because almost everything we talked about, I landed up doing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and I only saw that recently. I was looking back at it recently. I said, oh, I actually did that part of the conversation. I've done that. It's like, wow, was this prophetic or what?
Well, that's an interesting point there. What do you think is prophecy? What does prophetic mean?
Well, I now understand it to be meaning something completely different. Now I understand is the intensity that I had in that conversation created very strong thoughts which manifested.
Yeah.
So the prophecy was really, I was creating my reality with my thoughts at the time. And so I look at prophecy now quite differently. And
I love that approach. I think you're hitting it right on the head there. That's what true prophecy really is. True prophecy is creation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these people who people believe to be prophets. I was watching The Matrix again the other day, and when he goes to the old lady and she says to him, don't worry about the vase. And he's like, what vase? And he goes and knocks over the vase.
Yeah.
And then he says to her, how did you know about the vase? She says, that's not what's going to bother you later on.
Yeah.
You're going to be bothered by the fact that if I hadn't mentioned the vase, if it would or wouldn't have happened. And it's great. It's so much what we're talking about, creating your own reality, you know.
Well, so much of this stuff is also mind games. That's really what she was doing. She was playing a mind game with him.
Yeah.
And the purpose of her mind game was to help him realign his thinking. But ultimately, mind games can be played for a number of different reasons. Sometimes to be manipulative. Sometimes just to, act on the false belief that if I can get you to behave in a certain way, I will feel better.
Better, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say it's probably the most common kind. Including one, it's actually a method that's used by some very skilled, deliberate creators, which is interesting.
Well, Abraham Hicks is now talking a lot about people rising to a level of expectation. Okay, which in other words could be looked as manipulation or guiding people. You can look at it from both ends of the stick. So it's really interesting, because if you've got a child that's not good at maths and they always come back with bad maths marks, and you've now created a thought process in your mind that the child's not good in maths, and they will tend to rise to that expectation instead of you opening your mind and saying, wouldn't it be nice if that child was better in maths? Wouldn't it be nice if maths became easier and quicker and better for them, and having different thoughts which the people can rise to. So I'm very careful now about my thinking in a relaxed, balanced way about what am I thinking about my children? Am I expecting something where they're not, or am I focusing only where they are? And I'm spending quite a lot of time now just visualizing them exceeding my highest expectation and dreams on all levels, and it's fun to watch, because the comments I get from from my little one just today, the one lady said, Eloise is the light of the class. She's like just lights up everybody's day, and is so happy, and
that's fabulous.
And it's really nice to see all that, and I just visualize her being the best she could ever be, and leave it at that. I don't focus much where she is at, and where she may be. So I'm just focusing on that, and I'm doing that with everybody and anything in my life, including myself. So just seeing the best for myself, the best, and so
that's a great way to be.
It's not the way I used to be.
Well, yeah, very few of us actually grew up that way. I mean, that's what's cool about what's going on now, because there are kids who are growing up that way, which is a wonderful shift. It's a wonderful change.
And they've got the stable parents who are visualizing going on in the background as well.
That's fabulous.
So the whole family units becomes a great springboard for them.
Right. Yeah.
On the mental level, which is the first level that anything starts manifesting from.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned that what you've been picking up from what Abraham's been talking about lately, and it occurred to me that was actually a topic that came up on Friday with Linda Armstrong. And I'm curious to know, you can probably fill in some gaps, because I haven't been paying attention to Abraham lately. I'm not sure exactly what they're saying. But she was hypothesizing that they may be, because of what she sees in terms of the vibrational level of the world, raising more and more people becoming self-aware about how all this stuff works, waking up, so to speak. Because of all that happening, there may be a shift going on where we're going to be spending less time swimming in contrast and more time living in love and joy. And that maybe Abraham's talking about that more. So I wanted to ask you, do you sense that Abraham is talking about that more?
The way I see it is that Abraham is saying there are those who will be doing that, and there are those who won't. And choose which one you want to be, and choose, go for it.
It reminds me of the old joke about how there are two kinds of people in the world. There are those who describe and define the world as being two kinds of people, and there are those who do not.
Yes, I like that one more than anything. And then you get those people who describe the world as three types of people.
That's
right. But yeah, so I think they're very much about giving you the choice about what you want to do. And of course, as I've pointed out to you before, in my world and your world, and I'm sure Linda Armstrong's world as well, we're attracting more people that are like-minded. So we perceive that more people are out of the doldrums where we used to be, because when we used to be like that, we used to draw those people to us. And then we used to have those kind of conversations, but we don't have those kind of conversations anymore. I literally almost never. So the people around me, I would very easily come to the conclusion that the world is becoming a far more spiritual place because of who I am now. But I'm aware that there are many that aren't, and that's their worlds, and they are drawing like-minded people to them. And all of that is okay. There's nothing wrong with any of it. When I was there, I wasn't broken. So, it's all okay. The important thing, the thing that I love about the law of attraction, as I was saying yesterday to somebody, is it kind of makes everybody right. If you're a Christian and you really believe in Christianity, it'll bring more Christian experiences into your life. If you're a Buddhist, you're going to get more Buddhist experiences in your life. And if you're an atheist, you're going to get more atheist experiences in your life. So the universal law of attraction just makes everybody right. Doesn't really bother about any of that.
And interestingly enough, it makes right less important by doing so.
Exactly. There's zero interest in good or bad or right and wrong or evil. And
one of the things I admire most about Abraham is they've been very consistent over the years on one particular message.
Consistent. I have never seen a single solitary waver in doubt, confusion, or saying a different message. It's been the same.
But one in particular really is resonating with me, and that one is they never want to tell you what it is to attract. They never want to advise you on what you should focus on. They never want to suggest that you should change what you're paying attention to. They simply want you to understand how the process works.
And then you can make your own choices. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not up to them to decide what those choices are going to be. And that is just so admirable.
It is.
I still aspire to that. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer. That's like the best place to be.
Yeah, that's so. In the old days, I used to talk about, in my spiritual years, I used to sort of talk about spiritual detachment, and detached love. And what I've kind of come to understand is the depth and breadth to which you can fully experience the source energy in the physical. And the awe-inspiringness of it is just beyond any measure of description. It's amazing.
The other thing that I've been noticing a lot, and Richard is actually a good example of this, Richard Bach, Illusions, the book we just finished reading. Some of the best teachers in the world are people, it's like he says in the book, you teach best what you most need to learn. And his life has demonstrated that he was and is still learning many of the things that he talks about in his book. The best teachers really are the ones who are still learning. We have a tendency as human beings to put teachers on a pedestal, to make gurus out of them, right? To treat them as if, they've got all this figured out. They already understand all this stuff. They're all doing it perfectly.
There is an advantage to that if you understand master-student relationships. Once you've tested the master and once you agree to follow them, and that's your conscious agreement, then the master is able to help you on a far quicker and easier basis than ever before. So there is a huge advantage to becoming subservient and totally focused and interested in the person you at that moment in time wish to have teach you. So there is great use in that. Of course, a true master is going to teach you that you don't need them at all.
Right.
Okay. So they'll get your attention and they will use that leverage which you have given to them to put you on your own 2 feet and take away the crutches. So.
And that's what Abraham is brilliant at doing. We describe it when we're watching a video or an actual workshop in person. We describe it as, wow, they're just so in tune and connected to that person in ways we can't even see. They can actually see where this person is going with their thought process and so forth. But actually, all they're really doing is what you just described. They're just, they're just letting it be what it is, and not insisting that you follow them.
Yeah. And if I wanted to create a religion based on everything that I've learned, okay, it would be based around core principles like the basic law that the universe is created under, which is the law of attraction. So if I was going to create a religion, it would have to be based around LOA. It would have to. Doesn't really have a choice. And it would also not be linked to any individual. It won't be linked to any planet. It should be pretty much everything Abraham Hicks says. It should be able to be used in any universe, any time, any place. Okay, and it's not restricted and limited to anywhere in the physical universe. And it should be consistent. And a clear, simple message, and it's pretty much what they've done. It just blew me away. It's, if you were an alien from Beetlejuice, I like using Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy there reference. So if you're on Beetlejuice and you're a green entity going meek, wandering around the place. And you read the Abraham Hicks information, it would make as much sense to you as an on planet Earth.
I think it's interesting you brought that up, considering Richard, in a later book called One, wrote about exactly that, creating a religion.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, they created the pages.
And eventually decided not to bring it out because he didn't want people following it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate thing. If I were to ever create a religion, the first thing I would do is write it down and then burn the pages, because I don't want to impose a religion on the world. I'm not interested in that.
But if you think about it, the Abraham Hicks is a non-religion religion.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's got a lot of the basis of leading and guiding you, which a religion is supposed to do.
Is that what a religion is supposed to do? I always wondered.
Let me enlighten you what the word religion is supposed to do. What does mean? A religion really should be something to give you a clearer philosophy, understanding of how to live life.
I always thought a religion's purpose was to sit you down in a pew and bore you to tears for an hour and a half.
Yeah. That's the people who've got it wrong. So yeah, I do admire the way they've put it together, because there's no church to join, there's no tithing, there's no. You can go to a few seminars, but you can do that on any subject on the planet, and that's it. You can buy some of their audios, and that's it.
I like the way Cindy Chavez says it. It's like with anything else, not just religion. You can literally take whatever parts work for you and just throw the rest away.
Exactly. If you haven't learned that in life yet, that's one of the first things you should grasp is don't agree with anything I say, but if something does gel with you, take it and run with it, and then leave the rest.
That's the time to celebrate, as far as I'm concerned. Hey, somebody found something valuable in something I said. Whoa, cool.
I do it the other way, Walter. Says your problem.
It's your problem. Very true. Very true. Yeah.
You like me, your problem. You hate me, your problem. It's a very detached way of looking at it, but I can't see it any other way anymore.
Well, that's where we really get the opportunity to decide for ourselves, okay, it may be my problem. Do I want to keep it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if there was one thing we talked earlier about, is there one reason that we come in here? Are we here just to learn one thing? And I'm like you. I don't think we're here just to learn one thing. That doesn't make any sense to me. But if I were to pick one thing that I learned in my lifetime, it's I am not responsible for solving all the problems that are presented to me.
My job.
It's just not my job.
Mind your own business. Yeah.
Just not my job. And boy, is that a freeing thing.
It is very liberating.
Oh, life becomes so much easier when you come to that realization.
The weight off your shoulders.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, thank you for suggesting that we read Richard Bach's Illusions. That brought back happy memories.
We're going to have to think of something to talk about next week.
Oh, we'll find something. We always find something. But it was nice because up until now on Mondays we tended to just go with whatever came to us, and this time we actually had a topic, and that was good. So thank you for suggesting that.
Thank you, Richard Bach. Yes.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, it'd be great if Richard actually heard that we were doing this and didn't get upset about it. That'd be good.
Came on and had a chat with us.
No, seriously, it would be wonderful if he actually heard any of this and loved any of it. That'd be good.
I'm a great admirer of his work.
Yes, absolutely, me too. So thank you very much, and thank you to our live stream listeners and to our podcast listeners, who are growing in number, I might add. We've had like a 50% increase in listenership over the last couple months on a per episode basis. Now, part of that is due to the fact that we consolidated the number of episodes, so that there was less for them to say, "Oh my God, I haven't gotten through all the episodes this week." So that helps a lot. But nevertheless, listenership is up, and that's a wonderful thing. So thank you very much to our listeners. And with that thought in mind,
I just wanted to say, take care, everybody, and carpe diem, and have a fantastic week.
Great way to end it. I love it.
Catch you next week.
Yeah. All right. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.